I want to tell you about something that happened to me very recently, so you can hopefully avoid the same experience that I had. I hadn't flown in several years. Otherwise, maybe this would have all struck me as odd much sooner than it did. I was flying home from visiting a friend in New York, and my flight was very overbooked. There had been cancellations too, so the gate area was packed with people anxiously hoping for a seat. Since I was traveling by myself and didn't have to go back to work for a few days, I happily accepted cash to take a later flight. I wasn't in a rush and I hadn't checked a bag, so at the time it seemed well worth the couple of hours wait for the amount that they offered me. They drew a strange symbol on the back of my hand when I accepted the payment. It was stark and looping, drawn on thickly, and it captivated me as my eyes felt the need to trace the flow of the lines over and over. I figured, at the time, it was intended to give some indication to employees, perhaps to prevent me from trying to keep getting more money or vouchers if my next flight was also full. I ended up having no trouble getting on my later flight. Looking back, that was strange. For starters, quite a few people accepted cash, credit, and vouchers, and there were multiple cancellations, so it should have been fairly full, but I was the only one in my entire row, across the aisle too. There were maybe 15 people on the entire flight. It was so empty that we could have each had our own private row of seats, if we chose to. Otherwise, it was an uneventful flight. I dozed off and woke up well after we landed, to a flight attendant shaking my shoulders frantically. Her face had a strange expression on it, like a mixture of annoyance and deeply seated fear. All the other passengers were long gone. As I grabbed my backpack and headed towards the door, the small flight crew lined up to see me off the plane, which in itself wasn't too bizarre, but they seemed anxious. Some were checking their watches, while others rocked back and forth nervously. I received pats on the back, an annoyed glare from the lady who had woken me up, one tearful smile, and then the pilot thanked me for my gift. I figured, at the time, they had confused me with someone much more important than I am. Now I understand. As soon as my backpack had cleared the main cabin door, they closed it again behind me so fast that it almost hit me. As I left the jetway, I noticed that something was very wrong. Firstly, this wasn't my airport, and this airport looked run down, if not totally abandoned. I looked at my new ticket nervously, and sure enough, it had an airport code I'd never seen on it. I felt like an idiot for not paying more attention when I took the cash and was given the new boarding pass. I had wrongly assumed I was going to be flying into the same airport, just on a later flight. Especially since the employee booking it had confirmed the city, and the marquee at the gate had listed the correct city on it too. Granted, there are 2 airports near my home, but either of those would have been fine, and this was not one of them. I frantically looked around for someone that could help me get to the right place, but there wasn't another soul in sight, no passenger waiting to board, no one from my flight, no employees. I was completely alone.
If you like how this video looks, maybe you want to try out the software we use for yourself. Now you're probably wondering what it is, so let me explain that to you real quick. We use Create Studio, just like hundreds of thousands of other video marketers, local businesses, students, teachers, professionals, business owners, and more, all across the world. Anybody that wishes to create the following types of videos will find Create Studio very useful. These are 2D and 3D animations, video ads, e-commerce videos, Square videos, explainer videos, mobile stories, slideshows, promo content, and of course, the very reason we use it, for YouTube content. But don't worry, it does not require any prior knowledge of art or drawing skills to use. It is designed to be easy to use. It also has a very intuitive interface and can be used by people who are not familiar with video editing. So if you would like to try it out, there's a link for it in the description, with a special offer and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Now, let's get back to the story.
I could hear a faint, sharp scraping sound, the plane had begun to pull away. They hadn't even waited for someone to move the jet bridge away from the plane first. I was in a strange airport, and I looked to be totally alone. I pulled out my phone to see where the hell I was, and not only was there no Wi-Fi available, I didn't have any data either. I sighed and resigned myself to wandering the terminal for any sign of life. It would be a long night, but I'd figure out a way to get home, I told myself. Probably. I think I was too tired to be alarmed at that point. I finally began to take in my surroundings. I was in a beautiful, if dated, terminal. My eyes were drawn to gold relief art along the walls. It was really unique, though as I approached and began to make out the details, I personally thought that the scene it depicted was far too disturbing to be on display in a public space like this. An odd-looking creature seemed to be tearing a man apart, while weird figures looked on. There was no power. Instead, the last of the light streaming in through large windows of intricately patterned stained glass painted everything in a deep red hue. Ceiling tiles were strewn about, and some rested upon the dilapidated seats. My sense of unease grew the longer I took in my surroundings. There was something reverent about that place. It was almost church-like, but I shivered. My gut told me that nothing holy had ever dwelt here. It smelled faintly of fire. The fabric chairs had also taken up the scent. On the ground there was thick grey dust as far as my eyes could see. The dark powder crept into my sandals and had settled onto seats and countertops, and even the crevices within the art along the walls. I noticed the footprints of my fellow passengers and figured I'd follow them to find my way out, since the exit and other signs were either damaged or totally non-existent. After a point, the footprints began to diverge as the others looked to have gone in different directions. I noticed that one group had headed off towards what I guessed to be more gates, down a long, darkened tunnel. I stared for a while, but I couldn't see an end to the darkness, since the last of the light outside was fading quickly, and there seemed to be no power. I decided that route wasn't for me. I followed the other group's prints that went the opposite direction, towards a more open lobby. Eventually the footprints began to tell a story that confused and frightened me. At one point, an additional set of prints had joined this group, as if someone or something had emerged out of nowhere and began walking on all fours, or crawling alongside them. Soon after, the passengers' footprints became erratic. They must have started running in different directions. I followed a couple, but eventually each pair of human footprints ended abruptly, as if they'd been plucked right out of existence. Thanks for watching this video and listening to this story that was made by Reddit user JamFrance. If you would like for your original story to be in one of these videos, please submit it in our subreddit Unwanted Goosebumps. There's a link for it in the description. And make sure you don't miss the next video by subscribing and pressing that notification bell. Seeing as we're just beginning with this channel, it would also help us a lot if you liked the video and commented what you thought about it. And we will see you all next week on Unwanted Goosebumps.